I am working on the edit a user story, and I just can't get over that I don't like that the accordion opens when I click on that mark. So I decided I need to work on that first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a to investigate, and I'm going to say accordion opens when I edit a user story name. Okay, and this is what I'm going to actually work on in this video. Okay, I did some research into the Shocker UI accordion component. I did some Stack Overflowing, some Redditing, and I honestly didn't find a good built-in feature that's going to solve the problem that I have. But I did think of a solution. So we're going to go with my solution that I thought of. Okay, so I want to be able to click on this edit here without it opening the accordion, but I want it to look the same as when I do that. I want it to still look like that. I just want it closed like that. That's kind of what I want it to look like. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move my logic up. Okay, so I'm going to move this whole thing up. Okay, so you're gonna see the whole thing right now. All right, I'm going to remove this input, and all right, that looks back to normal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the whole thing based on whether or not I have that state. So update story name. If update story name is true, then I'm going to show the input. Otherwise, I'm going to show the accordion. Okay? It needs to have a div around it. So I'm going to add that. And let's move that outside it. Let's move this outside it. All right. So now we've started. Okay. So if I click on this, I'm going to see the input. Okay. But I want to see more than just the input. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a box. Okay. And then I'm going to add the name. Nope, that's what we have here. I'm going to add the icon button. Okay. To my box. And it is mad at me. Okay. And as you can see, we don't really need this logic here anymore. We just need the edit icon, and we don't really need this logic either. We just need that, okay? Because now we're only showing this if the update is false, okay? So now we can do the opposite here, where we don't really need to worry about that. And we don't really need to worry about this. Okay. And same with here, we just want the check icon. All right. So doing pretty good. We also want the status, right? So we have our user story, what it looks like, and then we have our button, and then we have the status. So we're gonna go grab wherever the status is, which is right here. And we're gonna throw it in there. Okay, getting close. And then we are going to add the icon that is here, which is chevron down icon. That's a guess. Let me go ahead and add it up here and see if that comes up. Chevron down icon. And it did, okay? So then I'm going to go ahead and start styling this, okay? So the way you change, the first thing I noticed is that my chevron icon is too small. So the way you change your icon size is using box size, and I'm going to try box size 5. That kind of looks like it's the right size, but I can't really tell. So I'm going to leave it as is and then go. So right now it's kind of all in a column. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to add a border. Okay. The second thing I want to do is I want to put my input inside of a box, because for some reason when input is in a box with a border, it changes the border. So see how it was like randomly black and then now it's back to gray? I don't know why it does that. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and do display flex. So now they're all in a row. Okay, so then this is going to be flex equals 1 because we want it to take up the majority of the room. Okay, we want padding is equal to 4 because that is going to mirror our accordion bucket button. Okay, then let's, is there, all right, it looks like there's a gap of 4 between everything too. I'm gonna get rid of the margin 4. All right, that did not change anything. So let's go ahead and add gap equals 4. No. Okay, so let's add margin right equals 4 to the box instead of the input. Okay, that looks better. All right, and then the only other thing that looks weird is that this seems to be at the top and we want it to be in the middle. So I'm going to add align items to center. All right, so that looks good to me. So I'm going to click check. You can see nothing moves. So it looks good. Okay, so now everything works as intended. The button does not open. Okay, well, I can't open it. Nothing's going to do anything until I edit my story, and then I can open it. Okay, and this is exactly how I want it to work. So I am going to move this to done. The cool thing about some of these investigative tasks is the more you do them, the less investigative tasks you'll need to do, right? So like now that I kind of have a better understanding of, like, my first investigative task was around how data is passed to a modal, right? And the modal closing, and then that had me edit how I was doing data, okay? But now that I know that this is how the Chakra UI modal works, I'm not going to have to go down a rabbit hole again. And same with this. I have a better understanding of how the accordion works, and so now I'm not going to have to rabbit hole an accordion again. I mean, maybe about something else, but not about this. All right. So let's go ahead and keep on keeping on, and let's actually edit, because if you look, I go ahead and type in user story 1 instead, and then I do my check, and it doesn't actually change anything. Okay, so let's go up and let's take a look at what's happening. All we're doing is console logging the response. Okay, so let's go to the backend. All right, and you can see that all we're doing is showing our DTO. Okay, so we actually want to uncomment this and start working on it. So we get a red squiggly line because auth service does not have this function, but we can add it. So I'm going to actually copy update task because this is going to be pretty similar. And then I'm going to go right below create user story, just because that's going to help me find the functions if I group them that way. Okay. So we have field, value, user ID, and then user story ID. Okay. We're not doing that. I'm just trying to figure out how much I want to do. So I don't actually know here what I want to return yet. And I do know that I want to update the task though. So how did I phrase that? Update task. Okay. So I'm going to say await this dot user story service dot update user story, and then I'm going to pass in the field value, user ID, and user story ID. Okay, this doesn't exist, so that's why it's mad at me. I'm going to go to my tasks and my task service, and I'm going to copy this update task function. All right, so that way I can use it in my user stories service. Okay. All right, so we want to update user story, and we're going to pass in a user story ID. All right, so then we have, let's go with story to update. Then we want to say this dot user stories repository dot find one, where ID is user story ID, and then we are going to have feature project user ID. Perfect. And the relations I'm not sure about yet. Okay, I guess we can start trying to think things through. So I'm updating the name and then the description. Neither of those things should have an effect on my project level of things, because it's not going to change any of those boxes or where they are. So I'm going to say it's fine that we go and get the project out of it instead. Okay, so the relations that I'm going to want then is going to be feature expected one argument but got 3. Okay, so it looks like there's an extra. Nope. Yes, there was an extra one. Okay, so relations. So we're going to say features. And then user story task. Okay, so we want actually then user story. We're gonna have to think about that. I don't know why these relations always get my brain twisted. Okay, so if we're to say if story to update, then we are going to say story to update at field equals value, and then we are going to await user stories repository dot save story to update. All right, and then I'm not going to return anything here. I am going to do const updated story equals, and then I'm going to go ahead and console.log updated story. All right, and here I'm going to console.log story. Let's say original story. All right. And then I'm going to import the bad request exception. Okay. So now at this point, if I change this to user story A, well, it's already user story A, so let's just do user story test. Okay. You can see that the original story is user story A in the description. Then the updated story is user story test. All right. If I refresh my page and I go and find that, you can see that the user story test, so that worked. Okay. All right, so what we want though is we want to get the relations so that way we can get the project ID from this, okay? So we need to go through, okay, so in this we are finding a task and then we're getting the user story, and so we were able to just do user story like that. So we are gonna just slowly test this by doing relations, and one day I will not need to do this so slowly. Okay, so user story is part of a feature. So let's go ahead and change this, and we'll call this test 2. All right, so it looks like the feature's now coming out of it, so that's nice. So then we want to do feature.project. Let's try that. And then we want to do test 3. All right, and now we have our project ID. Okay, so then we want to say return updated story dot feature dot project dot ID. All right. So now we have the project ID. So let's head back to auth service. Okay, and we should be able to copy this line here, and we should be able to add it here. So then we want to say const project ID is equal to await, because we're going to get a project ID back, and then we're returning the project by the project ID here. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look on here. We're console logging the response. So I should be able to look at my console. Okay, I'm going to test this with test 4, and I get my project back. Let's go to my features. I'm on feature 1 and my user stories, user story test 4, which is what I just put in. Perfect. Okay, so now the only thing left to do then is to set the project. Okay, so we should be able to set project with the response.data. All right, so now let's go ahead and do some testing. So I'm actually gonna just refresh my page to get an updated everything. So user story test 4, let's change this to test 5, and you can see that's test 5, okay? I am seeing that my success message is saying your task, so we wanna say your user story has been updated. All right, so then let's go ahead and change this to test 6. Your user story name has been updated. Let's change this to 2. Okay, let's close it. Let's open it. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna change this to back. I'm gonna change this to user story 1. All right, so now we have user story 1 and user story 2. That looks good. Let's change this back to A and B just to stay consistent with what we were before. All right, oops. Then let's go ahead and let's change a different one. So let's change this to user story A. All right, I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, so I would say we successfully edited the accordion and we are making our way through. And we can edit, we created the function and we created the success toast, okay? So now we just need to add description to the mix, okay? So let's go ahead and kind of look at that. So now we need to go ahead and make this description editable as well. And I think I'm going to remove some console logs and then I'm going to make that my next video. So let's go ahead and, I know I have console logs. All right, save. All right. All right, cool. Well, we will come back in a few minutes and I will go ahead and add the editing to the description.